This is Join Us in France, episode 249. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and Join Us in France is the podcast where you will hear pragmatic advice for your next trip to France. And I am not shy about the fact that I want you to see more of France than just Paris. And that's exactly what we'll do on today's episode about visiting the Aiguille du Midi. I can't talk today, sorry, I have a cold. In the French Alps. My guest is Edie Couvillon. She was at the Aiguille du Midi recently, and she was surprised by how some things worked, and so she offered to talk to me so you can be warned and be prepared. That's how we're keeping it real on this travel podcast. It's all about your personal travel experience. I released my third voice map audio tour yesterday. With this one, I guide you through Montmartre, and I'll talk to you more about that after the interview. I'm very excited because that one was really dear and near to my heart, because most people go to Montmartre and understand absolutely nothing at what they're looking at. And I want you to scratch the surface a little bit, let's say. If you are interested in our episode about the Aiguille du Midi, I recommend you also check out episode 206 about doing the Tour du Mont Blanc, episode 121 about a young couple who went to Chamonix and the Alps, and episode 83 about a family trip to Provence and Chamonix. And as you know, we use a lot of French names on this podcast. If you're not sure how to spell them, you'll find them all written out on the episode page at joinusinfrance.com/249. The number is 249. All right, let's chat with Edie Couvillon about the beautiful Aiguille du Midi. Bonjour, Edie, and welcome to Join Us in France.
Bonjour, Annie.
How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
I'm very happy to have you on to talk about your visit to the Aiguille du Midi. I asked you on the show because I noticed that you had seen that it was different than what you had expected, and lots of people want to see the Aiguille du Midi. That's near Annecy, isn't it?
It's actually right in Chamonix.
Oh, Chamonix, sorry. Yeah. Wrong town. So how, well, first of all, tell us when you did this trip.
We did it in early June this year, which was actually perfect weather for this, because it was still moderate at the bottom, very, very cold at the top, obviously. I think that's pretty much year-round.
Right, yes, it can be very cold over there. Although today I'm not sure, because we're having another heat wave, so...
I'm glad we left before the heat wave, since there's no air conditioning in a lot of places. So
that's right, that's right.
Good timing for us.
That's right. So how did your visit to the Aiguille du Midi go? What was surprising about it to you?
Well, doing the research beforehand, their website is very confusing as far as for tickets and just the whole process. So the day before, when it was very, very overcast, and we knew we didn't want to do it on that day, but we went to the information desk to talk to them, and luckily we did, because the lady recommended, because there was no line, to go ahead and buy the tickets that day, which we did. So the next morning, when the weather was absolutely perfect and we arrived, the ticket line was very, very long. So it's a good idea, if you know the weather's going to be good the next day, to either pre-purchase your tickets online that night, or maybe go the day before to get your tickets.
Good to know.
The people were very friendly. There just wasn't, even after getting the tickets, it was a little confusing, because when you walked up, you thought you had your ticket so you could get on the tram, and then you find out later you had to go back to the information kiosk, information booth, and get actual boarding pass. And it's just a plastic, I think I sent you a picture of it, it's just a blue plastic pass with a number, and that number is the tram you're going to be riding for the day. So that's the only confusing. I think if you wanted to maybe ride a 1 o'clock tram, you could probably go early in the morning and get a boarding pass for that particular one, but you can't just walk up and get on a tram. We had about a 2-hour wait before we were able to actually get on. that day.
Wow. So this is something you want to plan a few hours for.
Absolutely, yeah. The trip up and back is really not bad. I want to say it's maybe a 20-minute ride to get up and down. And then once you're up there, you can stay as long as you would like. So we stayed for a good while and took pictures. But so that doesn't take long at all. But you really do have to factor about a half a day just because of the potential wait, depending on the lines the day of.
So were you staying in Chamonix?
Yes, we sure were. Yeah.
Okay. So from your hotel or Airbnb, you were able to just walk to the lift?
We had a little bit further to go, so we had to drive. But there's plenty of parking in the town. That was all very easy. It's mostly street parking, but we didn't have any kind of problems with that. Now, we were early June. I think in July and August, it might be a little bit more of a problem because it's a fairly congested small town. There's not a whole lot of parking, but so just consider give yourself plenty of time to do it. For sure.
Right. And so you purchase your tickets online. You don't print them out. You get them on your phone, I assume.
You can do either. Yeah.
Okay. And then the next day you go and wait in line. You have to arrive 2 hours before your stated time.
Well, it just depends. Because like the way we did it, we didn't realize the way they assigned time. So when we got there about 9 o'clock in the morning, you have to go to the information kiosk, which is totally separate from where you buy tickets. It's in the park, kind of in the general parking area, and that's where you pick up your boarding pass, which is the confusing part because it says nothing about picking up a boarding pass.
Right.
You don't find out until you try to get on the tram, so they kind of send you back that way. And once you go to get your boarding pass, then the lady will say if you're tram number 36, she'll say 36 leaves at 11 a.m.
I see.
And depends. Yeah, luckily we just found a cafe and just sat and had coffee until it was time to go.
I see. So the ticket you purchased the day before was for like a long slot of time? It was saying you'll go in the morning or something? Or did it give you a specific time?
No specific time at all. You basically buy a ticket for the day you want to ride, and then you have to get there in time. Yeah, you have to get there in time to get your boarding pass.
I see. That makes sense. Okay, so if you show up when a bazillion other people are showing up as well, your boarding time is going to be possibly a few hours.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Now, they do recommend getting your actual ticket the day before because they'll only sell the number of tickets for spots they have available for that day.
Right.
So maybe get your ticket the day before, but the boarding pass, you have to go the morning of. I would go as early as possible, as soon as they open, just to be sure you get the slot that you would like.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. On the... In the mountain overall, they are being very, very careful. I heard a lot of grumbling, like on French TV. They keep interviewing people who want to go do the Mont Blanc, so the highest peak, and they have to have a permit and all of that. But it used to be that they didn't really check, but now they check the permits, they check people's ID, they check if they're there at the right time, if they have the right equipment. I mean, they are turning into really picky people because they've had too many accidents, I guess.
Well, and I can see because some of the sites I looked at, cause one of the options people do is they'll take the tram to the top, and then they're guided hikes to go back down and hike down into Chamonix, down the mountain. And some of the guides I looked at said it was they considered a moderate hike, not too bad, and it was very, very icy and very steep. Some people look like they weren't necessarily prepared for that. So I can see why they're like, because it would be very dangerous if you're not prepared, I can imagine.
Yeah. So did you walk down?
No, we took the tram up and then stayed up there for about 45 minutes or so and then took the tram back down.
Okay. So how long is the tram ride?
Maybe 20 minutes. You ride the first one for maybe 10, and then there's an exchange where you get off the tram and then get on the second one to go straight up to the peak.
Okay.
But it's all included in the same price. It's just you just change from one to the other.
How much is it, more or less?
I want to think. I think it was 63 euros a person for an adult. I don't know child tickets.
Oh, but, so that's pretty expensive.
Yeah, it was fairly expensive, but I think it was well worth it. My kids are 20 and 22, and they're still talking about it. They loved it.
Well, it's not every day you get to go to a peak like that without being a top shape mountaineer. So
exactly.
Yeah. So you went what month of the year again?
Early June.
Early June. Was it very cold up there?
It was very cold. It was. I would say at the base of the mountain, it was light jacket weather. but at the top of the mountain, you really needed gloves, especially if you went all the way to the peak, because the wind gusts were very, very strong. I think they were up to 70 or 80 miles an hour, and ice cold. It was blowing snow on you. It was very, very cold.
Okay.
But it was also, the sun was very strong. I would say sunscreen and gloves and a good jacket and scarf for the top.
Okay, very good to know. Yeah, very good to know. Yeah, I mean, you don't sound like you're used to a lot of cold weather, because you sound like you're from the south.
Yeah, I'm from South Louisiana, so if it's below at least 70 degrees, our temperature, it's really cold here.
Yeah, Canadians might be able to get away with just a light jacket, because, they're tough.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we didn't stay too long outside. It was cold.
Yeah, that makes sense. So up there, how much do you get to walk around?
There are a few different peaks. Once you get to the end of the second tram, you have the option of taking an elevator, and the elevator is actually carved through the middle of the mountain to get to the very top.
Wow.
So you can stay at different levels. Now, the two in my group who were uncomfortable with heights didn't go up the elevator, but my son and I did, and that's where the wind was really, really blowing. It was beautiful. There's plenty of room to walk around. On the lower level, the second level, there's a cafe. Of course, there's a tourist shop. You can buy things, but
sure.
There's you can eat lunch, you can have coffee, and the prices there were reasonable for that. It was very nice.
And of course, photography is very nice up there, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely beautiful. You would do much better than me. I just used my phone, but it was absolutely beautiful.
Oh, that's fine. Phones are good. I use my phone a lot. Last time I went to Paris, I didn't even take the camera. I was like, I'll do it with a phone. It'll be fine. And it was. I got some good shots. So, yeah, well, that's great. That's very good. So, would you say this is appropriate for people of all ages?
They do have an age restriction. You'd have to look on the website. I can't remember the age now. I want to say either 4 or 5 years old.
Okay.
And I can see why. There are railings, but I would be a little concerned with a youngster up there. But so they do have that. But yeah, absolutely. Even for elderly, there's not a ton of walking. There's not a lot. There can be stairs, but they also have elevators for them. So it's very accessible, easy. I would recommend it for all ages that are allowed up there.
Wow. Did you feel your heart beating harder because you were at a higher elevation?
You do. When you get to the very top, we all noticed we were definitely short of breath, and you can get a little lightheaded, and we all started kind of getting headaches before we came back down.
Right. So maybe for people who have a heart condition, this might not be the best idea.
Yeah, you might want to consider that, or if you're really, any kind of maybe asthma or breathing conditions. But for the time we stayed, the 45 minutes, we were ready to come down. It was enough. We had seen everything. We felt like we got our fill. And we were starting to feel the altitude a little bit, so we came back down. Yeah,
I did a similar thing at the Aiguille du Midi in the Pyrenees, and it's a similar situation, except that it probably doesn't get quite so many people, at least the day we were there. But yeah, it's gorgeous, but once you're up there for maybe 30, 40, 50 minutes, you've seen everything. I mean, you do get baked a little bit because the sun hits you hard up there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what would you say, what else do you recommend people do in this area?
Chamonix wasn't our trip. We ranged everywhere. We flew into Alsace and then went all the way down to Provence. So Chamonix, really the only thing I wanted to do there was go up this tram. I really wanted to see Mont Blanc.
Yeah.
The city itself was fine. There are other cities with maybe a little bit more to do. We did find. Now, one thing we did find, we went out of the town and found a local pub, and we watched the women's soccer game. It was U.S. versus, I think, Norway. So that was fantastic to watch that it was a local, very legit pub. It was really neat. We enjoyed that. But we have a little bit different idea because we really tried to go as local as possible with everything on the trip, and it paid off very well.
Now, you have a very French name, Couvillon. Do you speak French? Or?
Un petit peu. My children are both fluent, because they grew up in French immersion. We have French heritage in South Louisiana because a lot of our ancestors came from Acadie in Nova Scotia, or my family's from the Bordeaux region. So we have, my kids have both grown up through French immersion, so they're both fluent, and thank goodness, because they were our translators for the whole trip.
Yeah, did you find that people in Chamonix don't speak as much English as maybe other places you've been in France?
They had a fair amount of English. I think because it's a touristy area. They had a fair amount. In some of the smaller towns we went to, there was a little bit more of a...
Uh-oh, I lost you. Lost you. Hello?
Oh, yes, Annie?
Oh, there you are, yes. Sorry, so we were talking about English. Is there a lot of English in Chamonix?
Yeah, there is a fair amount, I think, because it's a touristy area. I found the bigger cities where the tourists were drawn to, they had more English. A few of the smaller towns that we stayed in was a little bit more of a struggle, but not really. As long as you really made an effort and you knew the key words. I spent a lot of time listening to your podcast and the phrases you should know. So
yeah.
we had all those key phrases, and then it's just when they would think we knew what we were talking about and start speaking French to us, we had to stop them. But no, not really. I mean, everywhere in the country we went, the people were so friendly, and so we had no problems at all interacting with people the whole time.
That's great. How many days did you spend in the French Alps?
Only the 3 days in the Alps. The whole trip was 11 days total in country.
Okay. So just 3 nights in the French Alps.
Right.
Did you feel that was enough?
I do. I do. We also went up to Salt, SAULT.
Yes.
That was on our way down to Provence, and that was also another really good visit. But I think so. In the Alps, now if you want to do some more hiking and stuff, I can see maybe spending more time. But that was enough. We wanted to see a little bit more, and I felt like by the time we left Chamonix, we were all satisfied.
Yeah. Somebody on the Join Us in France close group on Facebook was just saying, I want to stay 10 days. Is that too much? And maybe it would be, unless you really enjoy hiking and or sitting around at a cafe reading a book or something. Right. Or
if you just like to sit and look at the view, I can see that for a few days. But we were looking for a little bit more active vacation.
Sure. That sounds like most people anyway. All right. Is there a hotel or an Airbnb you can recommend?
We actually our travel agent was the only one that she booked for us, and it was just a Hotel Excelsior. It's a beautiful hotel. I think it's a Best Western hotel.
Okay.
But it was just far enough out of the town to where we had to drive in to go to dinner. So you could probably find things a little bit more convenient in Chamonix, but it's a very expensive town.
Is it?
Yes, believe it or not. I was surprised. Even the meals, everything there, just plan on spending a little bit more. It's very expensive.
Huh, I didn't realize that. Well, of course, you're right next to Switzerland, and that is seriously expensive.
Yeah. We spent one night in Bern, Switzerland, and that was incredibly expensive.
Yeah. We French people get sticker shock in Switzerland because it's like, how much is it for a train ticket or for even a bus ticket? It's like 8 French francs for a bus ticket or something. My daughter was there recently, and she came back saying, "Okay, I have no money left in the account. Could you help me, please?"
I believe it. And trying to eat out in Switzerland, oh my goodness, the food was so expensive. But I'm glad we went, but one night was enough. That was good.
So would you recommend this area more for active families or people with young kids or maybe older people or everybody really? I lost you again.
Uh-oh.
Hello. Yes. Sorry. You're back. Did you hear the question?
Okay. Yes, I sure did.
Okay.
I would mainly for active families, I think, in this area, just because, especially in Chamonix, anywhere you park, you're going to have to do a lot of walking. I mean, we walked a lot on those days. Now we also took a train ride from there, which was really nice, to the glacier. We did a lot of different things.
So you went to la Mer de Glace.
We did. Yeah, we did. But again, for active families, that's one for sure. You can do the Aiguille du Midi if you're limited physically, but not the train ride, especially if you want to go down to the glacier, you can't. Because now, as the glacier recedes, it's now 500 stairs you have to descend and then climb back out.
Yeah, 500 is a lot of stairs, yes.
It's a lot of stairs, yes. So that one, really that area for active families would be a little bit easier to navigate for sure.
Yeah, so Mer de Glace, that's very good to know that there are a lot of stairs.
Yes, a lot of stairs. And that's the one thing, my daughter, who has a fear of heights, she struggled with that because the stairs they're metal gratings, so you can see straight through them.
Oh, yeah.
And that was that was a challenge for her. So she and I went back up and had coffee and waited for my son to go down into the glacier. So just something for people to be aware of, that if you make it there, you might be disappointed if you can't go all the way in.
Yes. There's a great family story in my family. My mother and father went to the Mer de Glace on their honeymoon, and she just couldn't. She was just afraid. And this was a long time ago, but she couldn't do it. Yeah. The heights are a problem. All right. Was there a particular restaurant you like or particular local dish that you enjoyed?
Chamonix was nothing really stood out terribly because it was similar to everything in the region that we had, because it was Swiss and Germany in that area. It was all, it kind of overlapped. There was nothing in Chamonix really that necessarily stood out in that way.
Yeah, so probably potato dishes and cheese dishes and sausages.
Right, yes, exactly.
I haven't been in years, but that's what I would expect to find over there.
Right, yeah.
All right.
So not nearly like the southern France. As we got further down in Arles and that area, the food, oh my goodness, because it was more Italian inspired.
Yeah.
The fresh pasta and oh my goodness, that was amazing.
Yeah. Fresh fruits and vegetables, and it's much. I mean, honestly, the food in the south of France, probably my favorite is Provence. Actually, as far as the types of food that they offer, Southwest is also good, but you have to like duck.
There was a lot of duck everywhere we went. It seemed there was a lot of duck options. I was surprised by that. Yeah.
Yeah, ducks are in danger in France. We eat them too much.
Right, I believe it.
All right, did I forget to mention anything that was important that you want to add?
I don't think so. I think you covered it. No, I mean, I highly, highly recommend it. Even for people, like I said, 2 of the people in my group have a pretty healthy fear of heights, and they were fine. Now, on the tram, they were able to just look straight towards the mountain because you skim the mountain. Mm-hmm. So they didn't have to look down, and they both were very, very happy that they did it. So it's something, if you have a little bit of a fear, it's something really worth getting out of your comfort zone to do for sure.
Excellent, very good to know. All right, well, Eddie, thanks so much for doing this interview with me, because we've talked about this area, but never in that much detail about the Aiguille du Midi, and lots of people go see it, so it's important that they know what to expect.
Right, I agree, and I appreciate you very much, Annie. We're already planning a trip back in a couple of years to go to the Bordeaux and Normandy region, so I'm looking forward to hearing more of your podcast.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Eddie.
You're very welcome. Have a great day.
You too. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Thank you, Courtney Hawkins, Richard McGuicker, sorry, Richard, Jeremy Patman, Kathy Shaw, Adam Gatewood, Megan Perez, and Kimberly Stevens for pledging to support the show on Patreon this week. I think I have killed a few of your names. My apologies, but I am very grateful for your support. Patrons enjoy several rewards, including membership into a secret Facebook group where I answer questions every day. Patrons can also hire me to be their trip consultant and help them work out details that are sometimes complicated. Visit patreon.com/join us to see the different reward tiers, and thank you so much for giving back. My thanks also to Dawn Davis, Adam Gatewood, and Daisa Mason for sending in a one-time donation using the green button on any page on joinusinfrance.com that says tip your guide. Donations of $20 and over gets you an invite to the secret Facebook group. And Dawn wrote, "Thank you for all you do. I am a Patreon supporter and I just purchased both the audio tours, which I am very excited to try out in a couple of weeks when I'm in Paris. I will share my trip experience with the Join Us in France Facebook group." Thank you so much. That is so wonderful, Dawn. Thank you. When you let me tell you how you do the review, because I think a lot of people miss that. When you finish the tour, when I'm done talking, there's another voice, a male voice that comes on. That's Ian, the founder of VoiceMap. and he explains his vision for the app and things like that. He doesn't talk very long, maybe 30 seconds. And then when he's done, then it will automatically take you to a place where you can review the tour, and that is super helpful because it's new. I've only had them out for about a month, and so I don't have a lot of reviews yet. And Adam, who also made a donation, wrote, "Bonjour Annie, I signed up on Patreon, but I also want to make an additional contribution. I found your podcast a couple of weeks before our trip to France and Italy. The podcasts were very helpful, especially the episodes on driving in France. I had driven in Italy a couple of times. The rumors I heard of driving in France scared me because of the right priority, but your podcast straightened me out about all of those untrue rumors. Driving went very well, even picking up and returning the rental car at Saint-Sulpice in Paris. Many thanks, Adam." So thank you so much, Adam and Dawn, for being so generous. For my personal update this week, I spent a week in Paris to put the final touches to my Montmartre tour, and I am delighted to announce that it's live. As with all my other GPS-aware audio tours, you can get them directly through the Voice Map app. Just search for Paris and then Tours with Annie Sargent. But podcast listeners get a discount when they buy through joinusinfrance.com/audio tours. These tours will save you a lot of time because I take you straight to the best parts of each neighborhood. And as I tell you stories about each area, I make sure to scratch below the surface because you are Francophiles, or you wouldn't be listening to me. You know how much I love French history and culture. And if I spent my life just taking people to the best places for selfies, I would hate myself. So I want to tell you about things that you missed last time you went to Paris. And trust me, you missed some because most of us do. I have to thank my husband, David, who's been helping me with the nitty-gritty of selling these tours, and my sister-in-law, Katie, who played an old French tune beautifully. It's called La Complainte de la Butte, and you'll hear that when you take the tour. And, of course, the folks at Voice Map, who are doing an outstanding job with this app. But one person I can never thank enough is Patricia Perry, who has invited me to stay at her apartment in Paris the last 3 times I went to work on these tours. She's a really generous hostess and has great suggestions for places in Paris that we can explore next. So thank you so much, Patricia. Oh, and I forgot to mention earlier that I published 2 Patreon reward short videos from Paris. For Patreon supporters, should have gotten a notification about that. And in the next couple of days, I'll release some photos. And also one more reward explaining how to deal with the Journée du Patrimoine in Paris. My visit this time happened to coincide with that, and I learned a lot. Because I've done it in Toulouse before, but this was my first time in Paris, and there are so many things to see in Paris that, they don't make it so easy. So let me explain. If you plan a trip to Paris that includes the 3rd weekend of September, you will get a chance to see a lot of wonderful venues that are not normally open to the public, but French people, we love to make things as complicated as possible. So several podcast listeners have told me that they were in Paris, but they couldn't get into anything. So I'll explain how anybody can get in this new Patreon exclusive. And this week I will also release a short episode on the public feed this time that I will call, "Do You Really Need a Recommendation for Everything?" I have much to say about that. And I hope I can help you not get too overwhelmed with your trip planning. If you want to recommend the podcast to someone who already listens to podcasts, tell them to search for Join Us in France Travel Podcast anywhere they like to get their podcasts. If they listen to music on their phones, tell them to search for Join Us in France on Spotify or Pandora. And if they normally don't listen to anything on their phones, send them to joinusinfrance.com. There's a play button there. And of course, they can open joinusinfrance.com on their phone and then play from there. That's the problem with podcasting, is that there's so many ways to listen that it confuses people. But really, it's pretty straightforward. There's a play button. Click on it. Search for it. So thank you so much for listening and for spreading the word. Send questions or feedback to Annie@joinusinfrance.com. Have a great week of trip planning, and I'll talk to you next week. Au revoir. Have a great time in France if that's where you are. The Join Us in France Travel Podcast is written and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2019 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.